Hello, everyone. My name is Jim Piekarski, and I'm a Dharma teacher at the Venice Blue Lotus Meditation Center here in Venice, Florida. Welcome. And today I'd like to talk about a topic that is hopefully can help people understand the spiritual path a little better. It's basically distinguishing between thought and non-conceptual awareness. We're going to really talk about three different states, and understanding these states can be helpful for people on the spiritual path or even people who are just beginning. The first two are really being absorbed in thought, and the other is non-conceptual awareness of an object. These two states of mind are very common in all people. For the normal person, you can be lost in your thoughts, or you can be lost in an activity, or just really attentive to an activity. So when you're involved in an activity, you may have some thoughts, but basically you're paying attention to the activity. So most of your attention and your focus is not on your thoughts. It's really on just what you're doing. A lot of people take deep pleasure from this. We all have our interests, we all have our hobbies, and when you have something that really takes your interest this way, it can give you a really sense of peace, a sense of enjoyment. And one thing that's happening when we're doing this is that we're focusing on something else besides our mind stream, besides what's happening in our minds, which can be painful. So anything that can take us away from this can make ourselves just feel more relaxed and happier. So you can even see this in all kinds of ways. For instance, a neurotic teen. Most teens are kind of neurotic anyway. It's a difficult time in our lives. And so their thoughts can be really painful. Am I okay? Am I accepted? Am I lovable? Am I good? Am I whatever? So all these thoughts are going on in their minds. And then they put their earbuds on and they start listening to their favorite tune. While they're listening to their favorite tune, what happens is that they're totally focused on the sensations going into their ears, the sounds, the music, the beat. And while they're focused on this, they're not thinking about any of these neurotic thoughts at all. So they get tremendous enjoyment from this. They not only get enjoyment from the music, but they get enjoyment from the fact that they have a respite from this thinking mind, these painful thoughts. The one thing about our thinking mind is that it is full of all kinds of personal thoughts focused around the me and how the me is doing and worries about the future and all kinds of things like that. These create stress. Now, in meditation, there are a lot of directions to help deal with this. So the basic meditation direction, probably the number one direction, is that when you're lost in thought, focus on your breath or focus on your body sensations. So they make this distinction between being lost in thought, which is the normal conditioned mind, the habitual patterns of thinking, and being able to be focused on something else. So when we're focused on our breath or we're focused on our body sensations, we are experiencing non-conceptual awareness. Non-conceptual because we're not thinking, we're just noticing, and of an object. The object is our breath, or the object is our sensations. So this non-conceptual, awareness of an object is a relief. And when we meditate, what happens is we get relief. We start calming down immediately. We start calming down because we're not stirring up our consciousness, stirring up our emotions with our thinking. So we're actually just focusing on our breath. And our breath is just neutral. It doesn't really create any reactions in us, so we can just calm down. So we're actually focused on something that's actually happening too, rather than the fiction of our thoughts. So what we're doing in meditation is we're training ourselves. We're training ourselves to be able to move away, to notice first, to notice that we're thinking, and then to move away from that thinking and focus on our breath and body sensations. Every time we do this, it's like building up a muscle. But what we're doing is training our mind. We're training our mind to notice thought and to move away from it. Our thoughts are where our problems arise. So that's, if neurosis is really what our thinking is. It's we're thinking about ourselves, we're worrying, we're stressed, all these things occur in thought. So the more we are in awareness, the more peace we have. The less time we're caught up in our mental problems like worries, stress, anger, self-criticism, judgment of others. All these things are happening in our thought stream. So we experience painful states of being when we are enamored with our own thinking. Being enamored with our own thinking is something that every one of us experiences. This is a universal problem. It's a universal problem, and that's why so many people in life are unhappy. Most people are not on the spiritual path. They don't really understand the problem. They don't understand the problem of their thinking mind, and they don't understand that there's some solution to it. So when a person has an experience of non-conceptual awareness, they don't really even notice it. They don't really understand what's happening. They just find the activity interesting. So it's like if you're really into, putting together models, then you're, just focus on that and you really get absorbed in it and it's pleasurable for you. So you're getting some relief from your own mind. It's interesting, when I worked as a therapist, I worked with a lot of people who were alcoholic. And a lot of people who drank alcohol would tell me that when they drank, what happens is that they would dull their minds. And so their minds were so active and so negative that they had some peace from their own minds. They could zone out. And that was one of the things that drew them back to alcohol again and again. Some people on the spiritual path notice this, but they don't understand its importance. The problem is that a lot of people on the spiritual path are looking for fireworks. They don't really understand that what they're looking for is taking place in their normal existence. It's right here, right now, and it's not looking for some highly unusual thing to happen. The only unusual thing that can happen is maybe some experiences you experience in meditation. So when we're meditating, we're really just focusing on our breathing. And the interesting thing is that this is not determined by our likes or dislikes. So for the teenager, he likes the music and that pulls him in. For us, it's like our breath is neutral. It's not like we like it or dislike it. We just train our minds to be able to focus on it. And because we're training our minds to be able to do that, we're training our minds to have some power that's not dependent just upon likes or dislikes or something from the outside. It's a power that we grow inside of ourselves. We grow inside of ourselves by practicing meditation and becoming better at it. Meditators can also benefit from making this distinction. So if we really distinguish between the thinking mind and non-conceptual awareness focused on an object, like our breath, and really understand the differences between these two, then hopefully what we can do is become better at recognizing when we slip back into thought. Because when we slip back into thought, it's very important at that point to notice what's happening and intervene and bring our attention gently back to our breath. If we don't see that happening, we can go off into long periods of thought. And sometimes our thoughts can go back to very stressful thoughts. So So through meditation, we're really breaking the habit of being lost in thought. We actually consciously become aware that we're thinking and then switch our attention to our breath, our body sensations. Whereas normal people remain dependent upon external activities to do this. So making this distinction between non-conceptual awareness, which is more peaceful, and conceptual awareness, which is fraught with stress, is very important. Now, there's two types of non-conceptual awareness. The first type we've talked about is non-conceptual awareness with an object. Non-conceptual awareness with an object is when you're just focused on something besides your thought. So you're focused on your breath, you're focused on your body sensations, you're focused on a hobby, you're focused on music, you're focused on art, you're focused on something. All these states of mind are more peaceful. However, there's another type of non-conceptual awareness that is important to understand. And this type of non-conceptual awareness is deeper and broader. So the third state of non-conceptual awareness is non-conceptual awareness without an object. This means that you're non-conceptually aware, but you're not focused on anything particular. Because you're not focused on anything particular, there's no sense of duality where I'm here and I'm looking at this. You're in more of a non-dual state. So when we meditate, a lot of times we sink into this. We sink into just a state of open awareness. At first, we're just noticing our breath, then all of a sudden we sink into a deeper state. And in this deeper state, we're meditating, and yet our awareness is full, it's complete. We can hear the sounds outside, we can experience what's going on inside. Sometimes there's just a nice light inside, we can feel our body sensations, we can hear our breath in the background, and yet we're not focused on any of it. In the East, they call this samadhi. Samadhi is very peaceful and very deep and very kind of like a soft joy is there. So it's really gets our attention what happens. And when meditators fall into samadhi for the first time, they go, wow, this is something. And then they begin to understand in a deeper way some of the benefits of meditation. So we're aware, but not aware of anything in particular. Our awareness is open and spacious, and it's taking in all of our sensations at once, but isn't focused on any particular sensation or object. So this is something that meditators, particularly if you have some experience meditating, experience a lot. Now, for normal people, this is much, much rarer. Now, some of the places that normal people feel this non-conceptual awareness without an object are things like, okay, you go to the Grand Canyon and you're in awe. Wow. And in that sense of awe, you may not even be thinking anything. You're just experiencing the openness of this sight in front of you. So you're just aware of all the light and the colors, and you're not focused on any particular one, but the spaciousness of it and the grandeur of it just awes you. Yellowstone people say that happens to them there too. So these are typical experiences of non-conceptual awareness without an object. Another one is orgasm. A lot of people are delighted, of course, in orgasm. And in orgasm, a lot of times the orgasm, you experience something focused, and then all of a sudden just this peace and joy kind of fill you up. And because it's complete, it's like it's spacious, it's open, it doesn't have any limit. And you can feel kind of unlimited in these circumstances. Some people experience these states of non-conceptual awareness taking drugs. So sometimes people take LSD and they experience this. When I was younger, I took LSD, and occasionally, sometimes I would be lost in my mind. When I was lost in my mind, I would have, quote, bad trip, unquote. And these bad trips were because I was thinking so much. Now, sometimes I would take LSD and I would have a non-conceptual awareness without an object the whole time, or sometimes with an object, but they were much, much more pleasurable. So a non-conceptual trip with awareness of an object, I remember tripping with a friend and we were just looking at the floor. I couldn't believe how beautiful his rug was. And I was just focused on all the colors in his rug. And it sounds kind of crazy, but it was a non-conceptual awareness with an object. Other times I had non-conceptual awareness without any object. I'd be talking to people and all of a sudden I just felt like I had an understanding of what they were feeling and thinking. I wasn't so caught up in my own mind, so I had much, much more awareness of what was going on around me. It was amazing how much getting away from my own troubled thoughts at that time led to my natural wisdom to dawn more. And it was time limited because I hadn't trained my mind at that time, but LSD gave me kind of a glimpse. So so one thing about these states, for the person who doesn't have any meditative experience or is not on the spiritual path, these states are very dependent upon certain experiences, certain overwhelming or joyful or falling in love or something like that. You're almost requiring those experiences to have these things triggered in you. For a person on the spiritual path, you don't have to have these experiences. You can meditate. And if you have experienced samadhi, you can probably get into samadhi pretty easily, and you can experience it anytime you meditate, and you can experience that deep sense of spacious oneness and joy. But even with meditation, it's still dependent upon you meditating. And there's still maybe this idea in your mind that I have to meditate to experience this. So, but one thing you can do is that once you start understanding what non-conceptual awareness without an object is you begin to understand this is not something you seek. This is something that's happening all the time. So for instance, right now, you're aware of me talking. You may be looking at the screen, so you're aware of my visual image. But you're also aware of the sounds in the room. You're aware of the light in the room. You're aware of your body sensations. Now, these things may not be in the forefront of consciousness, but there is a whole spacious awareness that's happening every single moment of your life. And this spacious awareness is always here. It's not something that we need to pursue like it's something that's outside of us. It's something that we need to stop distracting ourselves from. And how we distract ourselves from this deeper state of non-conceptual awareness is by thinking all the time. Thinking gets us involved in the fictional world of thoughts. And when we're involved in the fictional world of thoughts, we don't see this non-conceptual awareness happening right now. And by right now, I mean all the nows. So right now, you can experience it. And as you're looking at me, you can even listen to my words and still experience non-conceptual awareness just by opening yourself and expanding your field of awareness so it's not so focused. And yet it's focused on the whole, in a sense, you could say. So by doing this, what happens is that we can take meditation out of the meditation session. We can make our awareness of non-conceptual awareness without an object no longer dependent upon meditation, no longer dependent upon going to the Grand Canyon or going to Yellowstone. We can make it part and parcel of our experience so that we experience it all the time. And by experiencing it all the time and practicing it, basically, what happens is we're breaking the habit of getting lost in thought, or just focusing down and having to have a good hobby to feel comfortable, to feel at peace. So we start understanding that this non-conceptual awareness is always there. It's never not there. So even when you're dreaming, you're aware of your dreams. So you may be focused on something happening in your dreams. You may be focused on the thoughts you're having in your dreams. And yet these thoughts and things are happening in a whole field. And this whole field is always there. So even when you're lost in thought, the non-conceptual awareness is there in the background. It's the field in which these thoughts occur. So it's always there for us. So it's really being aware in a global sense, and we can practice this anytime. So when you're walking down the street, you can just open your awareness and be aware of the wholeness. So it's vast, and it's open like space. That's why you hear Buddhists describe it as emptiness. Well, it is kind of empty like space is, but it also is, it's vast and open like space, but it is aware. So space is dead. Awareness is aware. Awareness is, you could say alive in some way. Certainly not dead space. The Tibetans call practicing meditation and, practicing being aware of awareness, getting used to. Getting used to, because it's almost like we have to get used to this part. It isn't a part of ourselves, it's our essential nature. We have to get used to understanding that this is our basic being. And all this thought and other stuff is just the movie screen. It's just what's playing on the movie screen. But we're sitting in the theater and we got popcorn and everything else. We're not just, in the chase on the movie screen. We're greater. We're more vast. So what happens is that we practice this awareness of awareness, we start eroding our tendency to be entranced, to be enamored with what's happening in our thought stream, all the stories that are going on. And as we do that, what happens is we feel more and more peace. Our consciousness starts feeling more and more light. So the most profound teachings in spirituality have two things in common. One is that we are awareness. That's our essential nature. And that awareness can be experienced and practiced right now. It's not something far away from us. It is who we are. And because it is who we are, it's not something that we have to pursue. It's something we just have to notice. And we notice it by not getting caught up in our thoughts. Because when we're caught up in our thoughts, we only notice our thoughts. We only notice our stories. So just notice the space of awareness. It's vast and it takes in all our senses. It's intimately close. It includes your breath and body sensations, but it also includes all the other sensations you have. Sensations, all the light sensations and sound sensations and everything you experience. It has no limit. You can see the stars, you can see the trees in the distance, you can hear distant sounds in the background. It is close and yet includes everything that's far away. So awareness is usually focused on something particular. And so we can be really good at that. A lot of people are very focused. But what I'm encouraging you to do is defocus, to focus on the wholeness, not focus on any particular point. Don't focus just on the breath. Focus on all the sensations that are happening. So we learn to become more aware of being aware. And then ultimately we begin to realize that this is our true essence. This is our true nature, our Buddha nature. And when you start realizing that it's your Buddha nature, shifts start happening. We usually center ourselves in our thoughts, our ego. We say, oh, I felt so good listening to that music. Or I had a great meditation and really had a deep samadhi. So it's almost like, from the point of view of the ego, these are events that come and go. But we need to reverse this understanding. We need to understand that we're always in these places. We're always awareness without an object. That's who we are. And we can focus down to an object and our minds can operate. But our minds operate within the field of awareness. So what's actually happening is that Instead of, oh, I had a good experience, it's like, I am this good experience, and now I'm caught up in thought and thinking other things. So we have it backwards. We're not some idea of ourselves that had an experience. We are this non-conceptual awareness. And the habitual nature of our minds comes back and makes us feel separate again. It makes us feel separate again because it's mental. It breaks everything down in twos, up, down, backward, forward. The world of concepts is dualistic. The world of non-conceptual awareness is considered to be non-dualistic. It's wholeness. So when we stop believing that we are our thoughts about ourselves and realize and be convinced that we are this awareness. We have to be convinced. How do we convince ourselves? We look at the issue again and again and again until we have deep insight into this. And once we're convinced that we are our non-conceptual awareness, and these ideas are just floating in our minds about who we are. Some of them are helpful, like Jim. I need to tell people my name sometimes. So that's helpful, and it can be practical, these thoughts. But we're not an entity in our thought stream. These entities we create in our thought streams are just made up. They're fictions. And we begin to realize that we're not this fiction. We're this deeper awareness. What happens is a shift happens. The shift happens where our center of gravity is no longer focused in these thoughts. Our center of gravity moves to our greater awareness, moves to non-conceptual awareness, and we realize that this is who we are in essence. Realizing in this on a deep level, with deep insight, is enlightenment. And this enlightenment is permanent. It's permanent in the sense that now your center of gravity is in non-conceptual awareness. It's no longer in the thought stream. Now, the thing is that it takes a while for us to become perfect. So it's not like, we will get caught back in the thought stream. But essentially, we're just resting in non-conceptual awareness. And every once in a while, something will come up. And we'll get caught back into the thought stream for a bit. Interesting that this non-conceptual awareness has some qualities. And these qualities are considered divine qualities. So our ideas about the divine stem from our experiences under kind of in the background of non-conceptual awareness. So these qualities are natural qualities of our true nature. So when we are centered in non-conceptual awareness, we're at peace. It's peaceful there. It's peaceful because we're not stirring it all up with our thoughts. So it's natural. It's naturally peaceful. We're not stirring our emotions up with our thinking. We're not worrying. We're not stressing. We're just aware. We feel more love because we are open. We no longer feel the separation of our ego. We're no longer, lost in our thoughts and, making distinctions between ourselves and others. We can make those distinctions for practical purposes, but we no longer believe in those distinctions. We see that we are one with the world. And because we see we are one with the world, we can't help but love others. We can't help but be open to others. It just naturally streams from us. It's not something we have to do because it is our essence. The other thing is that we are wiser. We are wiser, so we manifest the wisdom of spirituality basically because we are open. And we can see things from many different angles because we're not lost in a perspective. We're not lost in a particular mental perspective. Our minds are open and spacious, and we can see these different perspectives come up, and we can choose the ones that are most practical for the particular issue at hand. That gives us wisdom and the capability not to be conditioned and lost in our habitual negative or limited thoughts. So all these divine qualities we begin to express within ourselves. It doesn't mean we're perfect or anything like that. I think it's important to distinguish these things. But a lot of times when you're around someone who is, centered in their non-conceptual awareness, there's a deep sense of peace that they emanate. And this deep sense of peace speaks to us because they have, they're inhabiting, something that is we all seek, we all want. We all want to go home. We all want to go home, but all of us think that home is somewhere other than we are. Home is absolutely where you are. You have all these divine qualities. They're part and parcel of your true nature, and they're happening right now. The only reason you don't see them is you're so caught up in your thinking that you can't let go for a minute and sink into your deeper nature. Just sink into that deeper awareness, this awareness, non-conceptual awareness without an object, meaning you're aware, you're not thinking, and you're not focused on anything particular. So all the kind of myths and things we have about enlightenment, I think need to be put aside. All this stuff is pretty simple in a way. It's very difficult in another way. It's difficult for us to overcome the conditioning of our mind. And because we have to kind of question all our thinking and get rid of, basically see through all our limited ideas that are untrue, that can seem to take time. For some people, it's almost immediate. For other people, like myself, this took years. It took decades for me to be able to do this. For other people, it seems to happen in overnight. Sometimes people just see it. And it's like, for instance, you're in a bad relationship. You're with somebody abusive for a long period of time. And then all of a sudden, one day you see it and you say, I'm out of here. Up until that time, you didn't see it. You were imposing some beliefs on the relationship, like, oh, this person's going to change, or it's going to get better, or whatever. And then you realize it was never going to change. Couldn't change unless the other person really wanted to change. They weren't exhibiting that. So you saw what was happening. And when you see what's happening, what happens is a whole shift can happen. And when we see that we are non-conceptual awareness, and that's who we really are in essence, this shift can happen. And it can happen for you. And if you're interested in enough, and this is important to you enough, it will happen for you. So thank you.